All right, party people. Welcome to Dwell Church. My name is Matt Stefan. I'm part of the leadership team here, and I am so grateful that you are here today. This is part 1 week of 58 weeks of experiment. That is Dwell Church. We're going to experiment to see what a church will look like when it's built on 5 unique core values. We want to be Jesus-centered, research-based, trauma-informed, diverse, affirming, and inclusive. And part of what we're doing is tinkering just a little bit with the format of church. So most weeks we will do worship, sermon, kind of a little bit more traditional. Some weeks, though, we have sort of discerned it will be useful for us to talk to one another. What we're doing in this era of Dwell Church is tackling what we are calling an epidemic of loneliness. We didn't invent that phrase. But what we did discern together was in January, we have a special service twice a year where we sit together in tables like this, and we pray about what do we need to be doing on Sundays. And the number one thing from this previous January was we need to talk about loneliness and community. And so part of the way we're talking about that, part of the way we're tackling it, is that I'm hoping that you will give each other a gift today, and that is the gift of letting someone else know you. Part of the research that we saw over the course of looking through the community and loneliness type of issues in our world is that we've sort of been programmed with extremely unhelpful instincts. We saw one study that said, it was called the myth of the silent commute, that most people think if someone talked to you on an airplane, it would be the worst flight of your life. But when they told people, talk to a stranger on a commute in London, what they found was everyone felt way better after they did that. So people have the instinct of, oh no, we're around the tables again. It's going to be another terrible Sunday. But what we find is, gosh, you feel amazing. So encourage you guys to get to know one another. That's part of what we're doing. The Stefan family were camping this weekend. It was lovely. And when you're camping with kids, you're faced with a certain question. And the question is this: is it a tick or is it a bit of a chocolate chip? So that was a game we were playing all weekend. Demi, our puppy, had maybe 20 or more ticks that Katie or I peeled off of her. So I hope that you are not sitting next to a parasite. You're sitting next to someone that you will love, that you will get to know a little bit more. I also... Too much? Too much. Okay, I'm just going to write down the parasite joke didn't work. Let me just get that here. Okay, one more thing I wanted to share with you. If you haven't connected with Dwell Church, you can through the QR code on your table. Each Monday, whoever connects to the QR code, I just shoot them an email. Hey, would love to connect, would love to talk to you on the phone, or even get coffee. So last week, I emailed this person. I noticed that they had a plus 61 country code in their phone number. Does anybody know what country that is? I had to look it up. It's Australia. So I'm emailing this person from Australia, and I thought, probably spam. But I typed, hey, let's connect. Glad you're checking out Dwell Church. Today they emailed me back this. Hi, Matt. So kind of you to reach out. I'm sure you noticed in my sign-up that my phone number is in Australia, Melbourne, Victoria, to be specific. I have no idea how I stumbled across Dwell when there's so many Australian resources that should have come up first in my YouTube algorithm recommendations. The only explanation I have is that God led me here. I love your sermon and the ethos of your church and your approach to creating an inclusive, safe, and personalized place. As a queer, non-binary Christian, I want to thank you for the work that you do. I'd love to connect if we can find a way or a time that works for us. Have a lovely Sunday. Having just lived it here in Australia, I can tell you it's a good one. Take care and God bless. So one of the ambitions that we have for Dwell Church is that everybody that is involved is building Dwell in some way. And so if you are helping to build Dwell Church, what you're helping to build is a place that's giving people all over the world a little bit of hope. I get emails all the time from people all across the U.S. that say some version of, I don't know how I found this, but I wish there was one in my town. And I just want to say thank you personally for being a part of building something that generates those kinds of extremely random interactions on the internet. Something that we're doing during Welcome to Dwell, which is this kind of learn about the story of Dwell, but also learn about each other's story series of weeks. We're also talking about our Sustainability 3.0. We're on a mission to build a sustainable foundation for Dwell Church. We have those core values, but sometimes we also think about what is a picture of Dwell? How do we know that it's going to feel the right way? And so one of the ways we talk about that is we want it to feel like satisfying encounters with Jesus. Deep connections with each other, or the sensation that you are feeling seen
and being heard. And then finally, we wanted to deploy people not at the bare minimum they're willing to give, but at the absolute maximum capacity of what they could give to something like Dwell. So satisfying experience with Jesus, the sensation of being heard and feeling seen, and the sense that you're giving something, you're building something. That's what I hope it feels like to you. And because part of the story of Dwell is that we have no denomination or no supporting network for a church plant of this kind, we're sort of out in the wild trying to cobble together a financial foundation so that Dwell Church can continue indefinitely. We want Dwell Church to be a permanent thing. Now, part of the story of Dwell is also we received a large grant that covered Lisa and I's salary to get us going. And that covered about the first 18 months of our salary in bits and pieces. Now, ideally, that's used for one person to do all the planning for a church. But instead, we said, we have a good idea of what this might look like, so we just started it. And that's how we got to be a 58-week-old church plant. Now what we're doing is we're building that financial foundation so that this can continue. That's the dream. Now the amazing news is that, gosh, we are way more than halfway there. And if we get to, which way is this here? If we get to financial stability, I'll buy a new clicker. So you'll get to know about that. Here we go. All right, this is the original model that we put together. What I love about this chart is that it is designed to be accessible, and to someone who has been in all kinds of churches over my lifetime, I never felt like I knew exactly what to do in terms of giving. So a very smart person at Dwell helped us design this. Here is the way it works. We're aiming at 50 total financial partners at these 5 different giving levels. And in each one of these tiers, we need a certain amount of givers. So at $50, we need 20 people giving at that amount. I wish someone had told me when I was 22, if you gave $50 to your church, it would really be life-changing for them. I would have done it. I didn't know. At $300, we need 15 people willing to financially partner with us there. At $750, 8 partners, $1,500, 5 partners, and to anchor this, 2 financial partnering families at $3,000. So this is what we were aiming for, and this was our model to arrive in the first year of a church plant at financial sustainability. Now, I want to make super clear, because I've never been a part of a church plant, maybe you haven't been either. A church plant that arrives at financial sustainability in the first year has never been heard of before. That is an absolute moonshot of a goal. But that's what we started praying about, because we loved what Dwell Church was becoming, the amazing people that were coming here, and where we felt that God was leading us. So instead of just like an experiment that was a fun thing, we thought, let's build this, design this in a way where it can go on in perpetuity. So wait for it. Come on, little buddy. I know, right? Do we change the batteries? All right, I'm going to need some brave soul to click through it. Okay, when I power cycle it, it comes back on. Okay. Sustainability 2.0, we were at 29 financial partners and $1,300 per month. That's amazing. That's like halfway there, you guys. That was pretty incredible, and that was last fall. So now here's where we're at. Am I doing it, or is Lisa doing it? It's Schrodinger's clicker. Okay, we are currently at 38 financial partners out of 50. That's a 19% increase. And we're at $17,500 a month out of our goal of $25,000. That's a 14% increase. Here's where I think the numbers are really interesting. The mean amount of financial partnership is $300 a month, and the average overall is $480. That means what's happening is pretty much all of us are financially partnering with Dwell. This is not driven by a core group of people who want to see this in the world who are giving a lot. But instead, a whole bunch of people, actually from all across the United States and even the world, internationally, people are like, we want to see churches like that happen, just like the email that we read. And so we have all kinds of people partnering to make this possible. Here are a couple other thoughts I want to share with you as we're thinking about this. It was definitely Lisa that time. Okay, here's what we're thinking about in terms of spending that $25,000 a month. That pays for Lisa and I's salaries, rent for this place. We used to be at a place called the Elks Lodge. They were very generous to us, but we wanted our money to go into the community, so it feels great to be able to financially partner with a school. And then also that $25,000 a month means we get to support other organizations on a monthly basis. And that is a really fun way to build partnerships locally, but also invest in what we think the mission that God has given us to be. Finally, the reason we're aiming at $25,000 is because we want the second allocation of our grant funds to go towards areas of growth instead of paying the bills. So the reason we're working so hard on this is so that that money can feel like it really helped us grow our church rather than just maintain what it is here. So the reason getting to sustainability is so important is that it lets us use those grants in the wisest, most strategic way possible. So that's what we're aiming for. And I want to emphasize, being at $17,500 a month at 58 weeks is very incredible. We have 4 church plant coaches. We've tried to offset our lack of a denomination or network with more coaching. And they've said, that's amazing. You should give everyone a hug and celebrate. So I know you don't know the parasite next to you, but give them a gentle hug on the side. I just thought I'd try that joke again. Still didn't land. Dang. Okay. I'll retire it. I'm sorry. Give them a gentle hug. You're about to get to know them deeper. But I wish I knew a way to impress upon you the tone of voice that those coaches have when they recognize what we're building together. It really is quite remarkable. And I never know quite the way to say thank you, but I hope that emails like that and the stories you're about to hear around the table are a way of conveying to you that, gosh, something really special is happening here, and you and I get to be a little part of it. So thank you for being a part of Dwell Church. Thank you for being a financial partner if you are. We'll put this up after the service, but I'd love to invite you to join Sustainability 3.0. Here are the things that you might do as part of Sustainability 3.0. You might join a Dwell Builder team. As we said, we want everybody to have a role in building Dwell Church. Everybody builds Dwell Church because everybody's got something to give. I hope that you'll become a financial partner in the ways we just discussed, and we're also breaking ground on some really interesting new ways of practicing daily spiritual practices. So would love for you to get a chance at that too. We'll have this up again after the service. Now, as part of our normal church service, what we do every week is we have 2 minutes of silence, because one of our deep convictions is that the center of the target for human life is a conversational friendship with Jesus. Now, because I want you to be listening to each other a lot, we're not going to do the full 2 minutes. We're going to, though, nod to that tradition by taking one deep breath. We're going to forgive ourselves for any jokes that didn't land that we made during this segment. I'm going to pray for you, and then we'll move on. Jesus, we lift up all these amazing people. Would you give them the wisdom and the courage to know how to connect with each other, how to listen well, and how to give each other the gift of knowing one another. We lift tonight up to you. We love you, Lord. Amen. All right, my friends, I'm going to turn this over to Brian. Give it up for Brian Well.
Thanks, Matt. The clicker is...
If you want to fight,
I do want to fight.
You're better at it than me. I'm sure you are.
The clicker is still not clicking. Hello, Dwell Church. Let's talk about change. So when I say change, I suspect that some of us will be really excited, thinking, well, something new. Maybe it's going to get better. But then others of us will also, when I say change, will think, oh no, I like things the way they are. I don't want to do new things, and it might be kind of stressful and anxious. But change is inevitable. We don't live in a static world. We live in a world, I think we can agree, that is, we live in time. So as time moves on, change happens, right? So my wife, Angela, and I, Angela's here somewhere. I was looking, there she is. We spend time with some younger couples who are not as far along on the marriage journey as us. And we tell them sometimes that when we were dating, and we dated about 4 years before we got married, half of that time we spent long distance. And so what can be kind of shocking to them is that when we were dating long distance, we didn't have cell phones, so we couldn't text each other. We couldn't FaceTime each other. We had to pick up a phone that was connected to the wall, right, and make long distance phone calls, which were expensive. We didn't even have email at that point. I think the internet at that point was just some experiment in a laboratory on a university campus somewhere. So we had to actually handwrite letters, and then we addressed them and put a stamp on them and dropped them in the mailbox. Some of you are thinking, yeah, I remember those days. And then some of you are just like, how did you even live? But it doesn't seem like that long ago when we were dating, but at the same time, so much has changed in our world since then. I mean, the way we interact with the world and the way that we relate to each other has drastically shifted. But it's not just the fact that change happens. Change is happening at an incredibly accelerated pace these days. So I was listening to this UC Berkeley professor. His name's Hani Farid, and one of his areas of expertise is artificial intelligence. And he was in an interview talking about ethics and technology. And they're talking about how in past times, as we made advancements in technology, or even like, I think medicine is a good example, then a lot of times when there's an advancement in medical techniques, there's be a lot of time for robust discussion about what are the ethical ways to use this new technology. And here in Silicon Valley, even in the recent past, we look at technological advancements in 12 to 18 month intervals. But he says, today we're looking at technological advancements in 12 to 18 week intervals. That often some new technology is coming out. And when we want to talk about ethics, by the time we get around to discussing what are the ethical ways to use this technology, millions of people are already using it. And we're behind the ball because things are happening so fast. And so it feels like we're in all these transitions because change is happening at such a rapid rate that it's really hard to keep up. But some things do endure. And for those of us who like to have some stability, one of the things that we really believe endures are that people gather in the name of Jesus. People have been gathering in Jesus' name for millennia, and we believe that's going to continue. And so if you've ever been to and the reason that people gather in Jesus' name is God is relational by his own nature. I mean, even without creating anything, God is relational. We think of God in terms of three persons, Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. And so he created humans in his image. And so when we gather with other followers of Jesus, we are reflecting his image of being relational so that we can live in the type of life that God called us to live. Now, if you've been to one of our vision and fundraiser nights, you may have remembered that we asked the question, what will the church look like 500 years from now? Which is a long way, and we may have evacuated the earth and gone to another planet by then, but we believe people will still be gathering in Jesus' name. And so when we ask that question, we really feel like in the midst of a society that's changing very quickly, we feel like sometimes it's hard to find our balance. We have an opportunity here to build a place where people can come and they can experience the eternal loving grace and eternally gracious loving nature of God in a community where people have an anchor and a foundation in a God who is eternal. So we talk about the church of the future today and what building that church looks like. And so as we do that, one of the questions we ask is, what are we called to do that 10,000 other churches are not called to do? Now, if you think back, there was a time when church people talked about, they looked at big, healthy churches or churches that were growing and big, and they said, they're doing something right. All churches should be like this. We should take their model and do what they do. But instead of thinking that way, what if we thought Jesus likes a plurality of churches? He created us to be in a diversity of churches where each church has its own individual mission, where each church is called to as particular people in a particular location at a particular time. And that's why we ask, what are we called to do that 10,000 other churches are not? And so as we discern what this call is, it requires all of us. We talk about Dwell as a new church for a new era, and that requires participation, which is one of the reasons we gather around tables. The staff and leadership of Dwell Church cannot and does not want to discern this call on our own. We need everybody to do it. We don't want to say, this is the way things need to be done, so this is the way we're going to do it. We all need to be contributing to this discernment. And we don't know for sure what the church of the future looks like, but we do know that it'll be based on something like our core values. Our core values are being Jesus-centered, research-based, trauma-informed, diverse, affirming, and inclusive. And we feel like that is a unique set of values that Dwell can offer to the community that 10,000 other churches are not going to offer. We'll talk more about that next week. But we also feel like the church of the future is going to be living a story that involves belonging, that we all belong because each one of us is loved beyond words. We all come to Dwell with a unique story, and God cares deeply about each of our stories. And part of our call as a community of faith is to integrate those stories into God's overarching story that he is actively at work doing in this world. And so we belong. Also, we believe the Church of the Future is going to live a story where we are building together the Church of the Future, because everyone has something to give. So it's not like we're building something and then asking God to bless it. We believe God is at work already, and what our goal is to do is be attentive to where he's at work, and then we come and receive the invitation that God has to be a part of what he's already doing. And we participate in the unique way that each one of us can contribute to this overarching story. So we're building this church together, and we are also becoming more like Jesus together. And Jesus knew that the world was saturated with God's presence. And so when we become more like Jesus, we're part of God saturating the world even more and more with his presence. We're part of being ambassadors of grace to this world as followers of Jesus, who are becoming more like him each day in the unique ways that God calls us each to be. So in the midst of a world that is ever changing and where we may feel unstable and transitions are happening all the time, we have an opportunity to build a church that is Jesus-centered, research-based, trauma-informed, diverse, affirming, and inclusive. And we desire to be a community as we discern our calling, a community where everybody belongs because our story matters so much to God, where we're building this church together and where we're becoming like Jesus. So as we think about that, we're going to split up into our table groups, and we have a conversation question that we'd like you to reflect upon and share with one another. What's your previous experience with church or faith? And we're going to give you about 10 minutes to go ahead and have those conversations. So enjoy. I'm going to ask your forgiveness for cutting you guys short. I really hate interrupting some thriving conversations. We're going to have a little bit more time still to continue. So if we can come back together, bear with me for a few minutes, and then we'll go back into conversation. New batteries. Lisa, don't get up. Watch. New batteries. All right, so if you recall, 10 minutes ago, we were talking about what are we called to do that 10,000 other churches are not. And so as we think about that question, there are a few key things that emerge that are important for us as we're building Dwell Church together. All right. One of those things is when we realize that our call is unique, and so is the call of every other local church here on the peninsula, on the other side of the bay, in Nigeria, wherever. Everybody's got a unique calling. We can cheer other churches on as they pursue their unique calling. So if everybody's on their own journey of discerning their calling, we can disagree on things, but we also have to remember we're all on the same team. And there's no need to be territorial or competitive in an age where there's been so many people in the Christian circles who have been divisive and who have been battling one another and saying over who's right and who's wrong. We want the Church of the Future to be about cheering one another on and helping each other in the mission to move forward in helping people experience the spacious and unburdened presence of God in their lives. So we can cheer other churches on, and in light of that, we can also have a commitment to learn from other traditions. So people may be different than us. We all kind of have a unique experience, some more diverse than others, but when we make a commitment to learn from people who are different than us, then I think the Church of the Future will be better for it. Diversity is something that's reflected in God's character. It's reflected in God's creation. And we really believe that as we learn from one another, not being afraid of giving our secrets away or afraid of giving up our market share, we can learn more from each other, and we can all grow together from different traditions, different churches, different denominations. Look for the good things that are in all of those. Even in the workplace, diversity has been shown to really help organizations thrive. The organizations that have multiple perspectives that are being contributed to the mission of the organization, they're often more innovative, they create better products and services, and we feel like the church needs to embrace a posture of learning and listening. And we as a leadership at Dwell also want to be listening, and to all of us, all of you who are gathering as part of Dwell Church. Another thing that is important is that we release our commitment to certainty. Now, I like certainty as much as the next person. I don't like living in ambiguity. It kind of drives me crazy. I like to have a plan. When I walk into a conference or a meeting, My best friend is the name tag that has the agenda on it, so I know what time things are happening and who's supposed to be where, right? But I think I shared a little bit of this with our Thursday night What is the Bible group, but and we're going to talk more about this in the Unlearning the Bible series that's coming up after Easter. When I became a follower of Jesus in high school, I went to a few different churches throughout high school, college, and in my 20s. And all those churches were very Bible-centric, and that in itself wasn't a bad thing, but there was always this underlying pressure to be able to argue for all the things in the Bible that are confusing or that may seem conflicted. And I felt like, as I look back, I felt like there was this pressure to defend the Bible, and like I wasn't ready for that pressure. I don't want to have to defend the Bible. And I felt like, as I look back, I went to a lot of these conferences, I heard speakers, and I read books, and I feel like a lot of these churches really took their arguments for something to make a rational, reasonable argument and twisted them and really stretched them to make them fit into a box of what they felt was necessary to believe and had to articulate their faith. And I think when we try to do that, the danger is if we encounter anybody who's outside of that box, then that can really lead to judgmentalism, which is really unhealthy and divisive. And so I think when we release this commitment to having to have all the right answers, that really frees us, that we don't have to be judges of who's right and wrong. And we can, again, learn from other traditions and cheer other churches on, because faith is a journey of growth. We're in a dynamic relationship. It's not about adhering to stagnant doctrines. It's not about following the rules or believing the right things. Faith is about living in a relationship with Jesus. And we can do that when we release this commitment to certainty. I think instead of looking at what's helpful for us is we look at faith instead of through this commitment to the right things, we look at faith through the lens of, is this helpful for me? Is this helpful for me to live the abundant life that God wants me to live? God has designed us to thrive. Jesus says, I've come to give them life and life abundant. And so the things that are helpful for us to live abundant life that God designed us for, we want to hang on to, and we want to let go of those things that are not. And so over the past year, we've been trying to build the church of the future today. There's 3 things that we have discovered, and hopefully you've experienced some of these things. That one, we've gathered people that we adore, and we are building a church that these people love to go to. So we hope that that's part of your experience as well. Not only have we gathered amazing people, but we're also building a church that's better the deeper you go. But building a church that's better the deeper you go. So what does that mean? When you come to an organization and start peeling away the layers of it, often in an unhealthy organization, as you get to the center, you find a spoiled or rotten center where there's dysfunctional leadership, or there are really doctrinaire rules that need to be followed and things like that. But what we want to dwell, and we hope we're building this together, is that as you peel away the layers and you go deeper, you find the source of life that is thriving, that is Jesus. And it's healthy, and it's our source of life that we can draw on and build a healthy church together to flourish. So we've been gathering people, we've been building a church that is better the deeper you go, and we've been rediscovering a God together who is so worth giving our entire lives to, that we can offer ourselves with both hands and let go of all the things that we're hanging on to, because we trust that God has us in his loving hands and wants his best for us and wants us to flourish, wants us to thrive, wants us to have abundant life, so that we can experience his spaciousness and his unburdened life that he has for us. So as we think about that, we're going to go back to the tables for another 10 minutes. We've got another question. I know some of you probably didn't get through the first one, but it's up to you what you do next. What spiritual rhythms or habits have helped you connect with God, or what has helped you experience God's presence? All right, go.
All right, everybody. Does anybody desperately need one more minute? No, not desperately? Okay, good job. All right. I want to let you know about some upcoming events at Dwell Church. Before we go, we'll be done in just a few minutes. Next Sunday, April 6th, it's not on this slide, but we're all headed to Fieldwork after this. Yeah, that's right. Fieldwork's the best. That way you don't have to talk to the people at your table. You can talk to some other people if you'd like to. We're going to be doing that. There's also some additional, what we're calling opportunities to connect, that go out in the emails, or you can find them on our website. But we're on a mission to build into the sort of fabric and texture of the relationships at Dwell this spring. So that's what that's about. On April 13th, we'll do something that we call our annual Big Dark Sunday. In our world, we are almost unaware or completely unarmed when we enter a season of grief. We have no training, we have no rituals, we have no plan.
So we're going to practice together learning how to grieve in a really prayerful and I think satisfying way. So what I'll ask you to do in advance is to think of an issue of grief that you have in your life and to bring that conceptually with you, or maybe even an actual physical artifact. And then we'll learn some tools for grief, and then we'll just prayerfully enter 5 minutes together of silence where we just pray through the feelings that grieving together brings up in us. So I have come to look forward to that. It can be intimidating, of course, to do that together, but it also makes it a lot better to do it together. You will know for a fact you will not be alone with whatever your burden is that you bring that day. On April 20th, we'll be celebrating Easter. I also announced that Frankie and I will have matching shirts, so if that gets you here, great. If not, come and celebrate the resurrection of Jesus. I'm just so excited. We can feel like the power of the resurrection spirit when we do dwell stuff, I think. And I'm so excited to celebrate our second Easter Sunday together with you. After that, we'll be working our way into a series called Unlearning the Bible, where, as Brian talked a little bit about, we'll be really letting go of some of our certainty, and in a way that I think will help us find something that helps us in our actual lives within the Bible's pages. So I'm really excited about Unlearning the Bible. These are 3 great events that if you know someone that's been wrestling through their faith, or is maybe spiritually homeless, or maybe is just going through a really hard time or has gone through a hard time, these are amazing moments of dwell to invite a friend to. One of the ways we've talked about it before is if you know somebody who would just love to get into this stuff, man, invite them. We would love to connect with them and get to know them. Carrie Gordon, you have a question? Yes. Yes, we will. Okay, we were doing an experiment last week where we took 2 minutes to just text somebody that you thought of. And what we wanted to do, we're working on what I'm calling a trauma-informed way of evangelizing, where the emphasis is less on I've identified you as someone with a big problem, so I'm inviting you to church, and more on emphasis on I thought of you. And sometimes it just feels so good to be a person out in the world and have some other person in your neighborhood or in your life or in your workplace say, hey, I thought of you. So we just wrote up some text messages that said, hey, our church is having a series of Sundays after Easter about taking apart your faith and putting it back together in a way that works better. It's called Unlearning the Bible. I'm kind of excited about it, and I thought of you. What if the main idea that churches were sharing was, hey, I was thinking about you? I'd be happy to go with you, but if you're not interested, no worries. Again, we're letting go of some of that certainty with just an open-handed, no pressure, I was thinking of you invitation. So we sent a few of those text messages out. We also just asked everybody to think about someone that they might invite over the next couple of weeks. But I want to commission you to discover a way of talking about your faith that feels good to you and to the other person. I think that's a good hallmark of a trauma-informed evangelism, that it feels good on both ends to talk about those things, to have those conversations. That's one way of doing it. Okay, here at the end, in a moment, we're going to do what I think is my personal favorite tradition, and that is Antoine's cookies. It's a new favorite tradition. The cookies and cream are amazing. Then after that, we'll do my other favorite tradition. Everybody helps clean up. But first, I just want to pray for you all. Jesus, together, we lift our lives up to you. God, would you keep shaping us into people who are listening to you and to each other. Lord, would you show us how to take one step closer with you. Lord, I'm so grateful for these people who are helping us discern what this church is called to that 10,000 others might not be. Lord, but most of all, would you dwell among us? Would you send your Spirit here? Would you make our hearts sensitive to it? God, would you give each person here, would you give all of us a hunger to know you and to do your will and to walk with you? God, we lift our lives up to you. Would you bless all these new and budding friendships? We love you, Lord. Amen.